This NFL Week 12 injury news and updates and player prop targets edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a new social sportsbook available in 45 states. Download the Rebet app now and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match of up to $100. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
As he throws deep downfield, it's going to be caught.
Welcome everyone to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. NFL Week 12, just 2 days away from kicking off on Thursday Night Football. We've got 6 teams on bye weeks this week, so a little bit of a lighter schedule this week. Of course, you guys know how we do it here. We'll get you caught up on all the injury news for each of the games that do have injury implications for Week 12. And we'll also talk about some guys that are injured on bye weeks. And I think it's a good time to get that information as well with a little bit of a lighter schedule. But joining me, he is a superstar of the show. It's the man himself, Sebastian Fearon. Sebastian, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. We're just talking, coming off that beat down of the Cowgirls. Always nice to see that pedal to the metal all 60 minutes there. So fun.
Happy Tommy DeVito week to you as well, my friend. I'm sure the Italian food will be flowing this week for Giant fans, maybe even at MetLife Stadium. But seems like we've possibly, barring injury, of course, that Daniel Jones has possibly played his last snap as the quarterback for the New York Giants. And I mean, we got time today, Sebastian. How you feeling about it, man? Quarterback change with your team. Also, we'll talk about the Jets in a second as well, but let's talk about your team, man. How you feeling?
Yeah, look, I mean, you see me wearing the Giants gear, 2-8. I mean, I'd kind of had to dust it off a little bit. Been wearing a lot of Giants stuff because it's the end of an era, and it was a bad, torturous era. 70 games, 73 turnovers later. Daniel Jones is dead. And that as a Giant, as of course, he is still alive and well from what I recollect there. But man, I'm excited because it just takes off the table the possibility of him returning for next season. I tried to be a Jones supporter as much as I could. I mean, he did get shafted a lot early in his career, but definitely this season, offensive line has looked as best it's looked in the past 5 years. He's got a solid rookie running back. He's got one of the best wide receivers in Malik Nabers. So really the excuses, you can't defend that anymore. So it was time. It was probably well past time, but look, I'm excited for the future to come, even if that means next season.
It seems like the pieces around the quarterback position are built for the future, right? You mentioned you guys got Malik Nabers as the number 1 wide receiver for this team. I think we still have a level of Jalen Hyatt to be unlocked just because we haven't seen much from him. Darius Slayton as there as well. Who am I missing there? Wan'Dale Robinson there as well. So I think once you get a competent quarterback in there, whether it's through free agency or maybe more importantly through the draft for the Giants, I think that we'll see what transpires for this team because the Commanders got better. They got their quarterback. We'll see what happens with the Cowgirls in the offseason after paying Dak. And of course, the Eagles will be the Eagles there as well. So definitely brighter days are ahead, my friend. I'll tell you that much. And this comes from a Texans fan that was tortured for many, 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 many years before Deshaun Watson and then all that fiasco after him happened. So just there is light at the end of the tunnel. I'll mention that much for Giants fans. One more news we'll get to, not really injury related, but I had this conversation with someone else, and I asked him does it with the New York Jets pushing the reset button, right? They fired their head coach Robert Saleh earlier this season. Today we got the news that they let go of their GM Joe Douglas there as well. It was his last deal of his contract. We knew that they were not going to renew his deal. Looks like they will be looking for another for another head coach there as well.
Yeah.
Their season is pretty much over. There's no hope for them to make the playoffs. If you know that Rodgers is going to be your quarterback next season, is there really a reason for him to be out there?
Gosh, do you know that? Do you want Rodgers to be your quarterback next season?
From what I've read, so what I've read, he wants to return.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be with the Jets, but it'll be interesting because they did get Devontae Adams' old pal there. But that was my question, and I tweeted this out today. I was like, you can fire all the head coaches, you can fire the GM, let him go, whatever the case might be. But at the end of the day, I think for the Jets, it's a quarterback problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's really where it starts. I mean, for the most part, the offensive line, I know they've had some of their issues, but they've stayed relatively healthy. The defense is taking some injuries. Obviously, Hassan Reddick deciding whenever he wanted to play football. That's a thing. Yeah. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the offense has been a lot more of the problem than the defense has. And what else does he want? I mean, he's got Breece Hall, one of the best running backs. He's got a solid rookie running back kind of bruiser in Braylon Allen. And then he's got, a decent tight end, but he's got Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, two of the best wide receivers in the game. I mean, he had his buddy Lazard there for a little while too. I mean, they had Mike Williams, who he just didn't use. Like at a certain point, like skill position wise, you're talking about the Giants and them having a promising future. I mean, these Jets offensive skill players are much better. And I think they in a similar fashion, they have a solid defensive line. I think they've got a better secondary. So, if I'm super optimistic on the Giants now that they got rid of their quarterback, I don't know why you don't turn to this right over next to them in the city and just say same thing for the Jets. I mean, Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson both have better winning possessions than Aaron Rodgers.
That's wild.
Better teams. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like I drank the Kool-Aid a little bit this season. I thought the Jets with the roster, given even if Rodgers at like 80% of Aaron Rodgers was going to get this team to the playoffs and potentially win the division, but he doesn't look good at all. No. So I agree. I mean, I think they're using the coaches as a scapegoat and stuff like that, but I think it'd be insane to not at least bring somebody in this offseason.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I know what you mentioned about Sam Darnold and both Zach Wilson having a better winning percentage than Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely insane to think about. But, we'll save that conversation maybe for the offseason as well. All right, before we do get into the games here for the Week 12 card with all the injury news, if you haven't already, download the SGPN app. You're missing out. The SGPN app gives you access to all the podcasts on the network and all the picks pages in one convenient app. Plus, like all of our content in the app is completely free. So all you got to do is just type SGPN in your app store and download it today. All right, Sebastian, let's get into it here, man. Coming off a pretty good week 11 as far as, the games and the, I guess, competitive play, except for maybe a couple games there. But we'll start here with Thursday night football, AFC North division matchup. We've got the first place Pittsburgh Steelers. They are in Cleveland to take on the Browns. Steelers laying 3.5 points here on the road here with a total of 36.5 here. Sebastian, what do we got for Steelers and Browns?
Yeah. What did you say the spread was there?
3.5 in favor of the Steelers.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I was just as you can see, the wife and is big time fan there, and obviously watching the Steelers Ravens games have been fun. But it's an AFC North matchup, and I think as easy as it is to say like, look, one good team versus one bad team, laying more than a field goal is going to be tough in any of these games. I think it's going to be a hard-nosed, gritty game. And let's talk about these injuries. So on the Cleveland offensive line, an offensive line that's been very beat up this season. So swing tackle, left tackle, DeJuan Jones, fractured ankle, out for the season. He was stepping in for the place of Jedrick Willis, who's been dealing with a knee injury. He had a big injury coming in the offseason. Then he kind of picked up a knee injury during the season, a bit of a re-injury. So he did not practice on Monday, but he did have a limited practice today. I mean, however, last week he had a limited practice and ultimately did not play. So he's definitely not a lock to be starting. I mean, it would be a big boost. That's one to watch because if not, they'll be on their left tackle number 3 going up against, TJ Watt. They no Alex Highsmith for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they do have Nick Herbig and Preston Smith stepping in there to rotate at the edge rusher. So definitely one to watch for. Look, DeJuan Jones out for the season, but Jedrick Willis is the guy who has a chance, but he has, even when he's been on the field, he's not been the same guy. So something to monitor there. And then on the other news for their defense, cornerback Denzel Ward, arguably their best player outside of Myles Garrett, picked up a rib injury a couple days ago. He's been limited practice twice. At this point, I do expect him to play, but rib injuries are tough. There's something you got to fight through if you take a good shot to the ribs. I mean, he's a guy who's a great player, just has trouble staying on the field, but he should be good to go. And then Myles Garrett did not practice, but I fully expect him to play. Just, a rest day. Does Myles Garrett really need to practice? He's already talking shit about TJ Watt and his reaction to him winning Defensive Player of the Year last season. So that's going to be a fun one. Maybe we'll have a sack off there.
Yeah.
On the Pittsburgh side, cornerback Joey Porter Jr. He picked up, he was kind of in and out of the lineup. I mean, he did make that final play on Lamar Jackson to kind of before whatever the hell that play was, but basically to tackle him before he kind of chucked it up there. Was dealing with a shin contusion, which is just really a bruise. So he should be good to go. He's not even on the injury report. Talked about Alex Highsmith not practicing, pretty much we're going to be ruled out. And then an interesting one is cornerback Corey Trice, second-year player, should be activated off IR with the hamstring. He's fully practicing. So another piece for that Pittsburgh secondary there. We talked about the offensive line for Cleveland. This is a Cleveland offensive line that's let up 46 sacks this season. That's just astronomical. And now we're going against Pittsburgh. Obviously, if you're a defensive guy like myself, Watt prices are going to be juiced, but guys like Herbig and Preston Smith, if you can get them, I think those are worth, a bit of a sprinkle there. And really for me, it's going to be Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren attacking that Cleveland rush defense. I mean, Taysom Hill just went berserk last week. And flip side, it's Njoku. The Steelers kind of susceptible against the tight end. And then Nick Chubb, I just want to mention, he's looking a little bit healthier. They need to feed him. Last week, he was averaging over 4 yards. But this is a revenge game. I mean, the Steelers was the game where he got his leg essentially snapped in half. So if he's got any type of extra motivation, he usually performs pretty well against the Steelers.
Yeah, I thought last week would be the week that Nick Chubb broke out a little bit, but again, they were trailing in that game, so really didn't have a choice maybe to, obviously throw the football for the Cleveland Browns. But this might be the week. The sack numbers right now, we have 3 guys for the Steelers listed. TJ Watt over quarter sack is at -135. Nick Herbig quarter sack over is +175, and then Keanu Benton over over quarter of a sack +390 right now for only 3 Steelers players listed right now. So I think definitely would be a week where we want to look at sack props right now as we're recording here on Tuesday evening. Only 3 players listed right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was going to mention something, but I completely slipped my mind out. But got anything else for Steelers Browns?
No, it's going to be a hard-nosed game, typical AFC North fashion. So ugly defense running the ball. So I'm excited for it, but I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as some people may think looking at the records.
As the missus bought the Super Bowl tickets.
We have had the discussion, there's a chance assignments coming down the pipeline. There's a chance we wind up somewhere overseas. So we've had the somewhat of a dream discussion that, if they do make the Super Bowl this year, we might be out of the country for a couple years. So maybe we go make the trip. So we'll see.
Oh, there we go. All right,
early, but we'll see.
Hey man, there's look, this team right now just looks really, really good. Led by Mike Tomlin and Russell Wilson coming in as the quarterback. It's just, can they stay healthy? I think that's going to be the biggest key for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sebastian, before we continue the conversation here, let me tell everyone about mybookie.ag. Hey, look, we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. SGPN actually started out with mybookie.ag, and now we're back. Check out the new and improved website, great on mobile, plus props for every game, and the live dealer casino. They even have early cash out options. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Plus, you also get a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag. Make sure you guys use our promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rebet. We're brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a brand new social sportsbook available in 45 states. A huge market of betting opportunities are available on Rebet. Easy to use and great for people in states where traditional sportsbook may be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Rebet. Use that promo code SGPN. All right, Sebastian, let's keep it rolling here, man. Let's get over to the Sunday slate for this week. And we'll start it off here with the Kansas City Chiefs. They are going to be coming off of that game against the Carolina Panthers. Their first loss of the season for the Chiefs have now head to the road, laying 11 points against the Carolina Panthers. Total sitting at 42.5 here. Sebastian, what are we thinking about this game?
Yeah, a couple injuries. The one big one I would talk off the top here is look, Panthers running back Jonathan Brooks coming off his ACL tear. We've heard this past couple weeks, but it looks like he actually will make his debut. What a shitty time to make your debut as a rookie,
Right.
Coming off your first game off the ACL tear. No, first live action in the NFL, and you're going up against a pissed off Kansas City rush defense that is already one of the best in the league. And I mean, look, he's still squarely RB2. Miles Sanders has been ruled out, which is fine. But Chuba Hubbard, I mean, they just paid him. He's been a solid back. Look, I've been saying this all season, really. There's a reason I took his under rushing touchdowns for the season. But just temper expectations, right? If this is a situation where you're a dynasty player and this is somebody you have, don't get freaked out after these first couple games. I mean, I think next season and moving forward, potentially he has a chance to be a really good back. But I'm expecting between maybe 10, maybe 15 touches. I don't know, maybe closer to 5, honestly. I think they ease him in for the rest of the season. It's going to ramp up. It's just a really, really hard matchup. And it's hard to expect a lot coming off an ACL tear. So, I just would really temper expectations there. I doubt the books will hang any numbers here, but it'll be interesting to see. If they do, I mean, I'll probably be on the unders. And then on the other side of the ball, we have Isaiah Pacheco, who was kind of getting into practice last week. The expectation was always going to be a ramp up. Interesting thing with the broken fibula, when we talk about bones, they really just need time to heal. And once they're healed and cleared, you're kind of good to go. So yeah, they can appreciate the fact they're giving them a ramp up. I think that's a little bit of the luxury of having guys like Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and Carson Steele. I'm very interested to see what the splits are going to look like when Pacheco does get back. Because, I mean, him and Kareem Hunt are basically the same dude. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like. I mean, obviously, it's, a little bit of embarrassment of riches there in Kansas City. So we'll see if he does. I would expect Pacheco to be back this week, but it is a little bit more questionable than Jonathan Brooks. Also, Charles Omenihu coming off an ACL tear. He was starting to practice last week. I don't expect a ton from him. He's edge rusher there. More for playoffs is when I would think he's going to start ramping and really getting some productivity. But Pacheco, when he comes back, I mean, he really should be close to 100%. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the books do and what the Chiefs do in general with that running back situation.
Yeah, I think I'll be curious to see if, like you mentioned, if the books in fact do drop a prop number for Jonathan Brooks. Again, like you mentioned, it's a very, very tough matchup going up against one of the best rush defenses this season in the Kansas City Chiefs. And also we'll keep an eye out for Isaiah Pacheco. And I still continue to think that, or they will continue with that two-headed monster back there with Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco once he does return for the Chiefs there. All right, let's keep it rolling here, Sebastian. We'll go over to the game between the Detroit Lions. They are visiting the Indianapolis Colts in this matchup. Lions are a 7.5-point road favorite here with a total of 50.5. Lions coming off of the shellacking of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 52-6. There was no letting up in that game, just pouring it on. But I loved it because a lot of my props were in that Lions game with their quote unquote or three-headed monster. I had Jared Goff over passing yards, Jameson Williams longest reception, Jahmyr Gibbs longest rush. I think I had Amon-Ra St. Brown reception there as well. So I was absolutely loving it. But let's get into the injuries here. Lions, Colts, what are you looking at?
Yeah, really just the one big one on the defensive front. About the only thing that's going wrong for this Lions team this season is some big defensive injuries. Obviously, with the Hutchinson out for the season. Now you got star linebacker Alex Anzalone, former Florida Gator there with his luscious locks. Forearm injury, broken forearm, out for 6 to 8 weeks. Again with bones. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. You got to let the bone heal. Not really much you can do to speed that up. So again, he's going to be out for basically the rest of the regular season. He'll be back for the playoffs as they try to when they make their push, but they're trying to secure the number 1 seed right now. They got the Eagles nipping at their heels. So it's a bit of a loss for the defense. I'm curious to see if they bring somebody in. Now, Malcolm Rodriguez is a guy who's missed the past couple games. I do expect him to kind of be closer to getting back. So that'll be a nice boost for this linebacking core. But Anzalone's kind of been a leader on that team. So this is going to be interesting to see, do they bring somebody in? I know I can't remember if it's Terrell Edmonds or his brother, but one of them is a free agent right now, linebacker type. So do they bring in a guy like that? So I'm curious to see what the Lions do. Obviously, bringing in Zadarius Smith, they're definitely kind of all in on this season. So we'll see.
Yeah, everything just has been going right for that team, like you mentioned, with the 2 injuries there on the defensive line there. So looks like they'll be a little bit thin there for the Detroit Lions going forward. Like you mentioned, we'll see if they're able to bring someone in. Traymon Edmonds, I believe, is a brother of
Tyrell or whatever.
Tyrell. Yeah. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We'll get over to the next game that we want to get to. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are going to be visiting the New York Giants. Bucks laying 5.5 in this game with a total of 42. Sebastian, we talked about the quarterback change. Not really a injury perspective there, just a whole bunch of sucking. But what do we got for Bucks Giants?
Yeah, really just one big defensive one here. It's cornerback number 1 for them, Jamel Dean. He's coming off a IR with his hamstring injury, so he should be activated this week. That's really the biggest one right now. As far as Mike Evans, we have to see where he's at. Really not a lot of indication either way. I think this would be his week that he's eligible to come off, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. Because I know you and I talked about this a while back that we were thinking that he comes back after the bye week. I did say that he did take practice this week, so we'll see if he's playing this week.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I mean, look, if he's practicing obviously during the bye week, then it's a good chance he's going to be back. But we'll see, right? That's hamstrings are very tricky injuries. They're very burdensome during the season. You have to be careful and not make it a bigger issue. I mean, for Evans, he already did that. He tried to play through it and he injured it, and it's always going to be worse because you're taking damaged tissue and making it worse. So, but Dean coming back is going to be good for them. He's their best cover guy. I mean, they've been getting lit up by everybody in that secondary. I mean, Baker Mayfield is doing everything in his power to win games. He's almost like Joe Burrow. I mean, I know people are talking a lot about Joe Burrow, but look at Baker, what Baker's doing, leading, potential game-winning drives against San Francisco, against the Chiefs, and his defense just letting him down. But thankfully for them, they're going up against Tommy DeVito. So I think they'll be kind. I'm curious to see what the props are on DeVito. I mean, he's got a good matchup. Last season when he picked up some wins, he did a lot with his legs, but that was a little bit through necessity. I mean, he was also the most sacked quarterback. I mean, the offensive line was embarrassingly bad. And I know still no Andrew Thomas, but we did pick up Tyree Phillips this week on the bye week. A guy who started for 7 games. He's a pretty solid guy. So if he's healthy coming off his injury, I think that offensive line is going to be okay. Bucks pass defense is, their rush defense isn't anything to really be afraid of. So really, I'm just curious with the DeVito props and how he's going to look. But ultimately, he's going to have a tougher test with Jamel Dean coming back from injury. And we'll see on Mike Evans.
All right. But let me ask you this about obviously with the John. I mean, we're not sure what we're going to get from Tommy DeVito in this game. But, I mean, would you target anybody as far as the Giants size for player props, or are you just going to be a crapshoot and trying us to figure out, what DeVito looks like and who he's going to target?
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a crapshoot for sure. It's just, some guesstimation here, but he had a decent connection with Slayton last season. He's definitely a guy who's going to take some more shots than Daniel Jones has. So that, in my opinion, I think a guy like Neighbors, if I was him, if I'm throwing the ball up, I'm throwing it all up to Malik Neighbors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously some of that is going to be dependent on the coverage and how much they're going to roll over to Neighbors' side. But I do think, there's going to be some opportunities, especially against this defense, where he's going to be trying to throw the ball deep, and whether that winds up in turnovers or some long catches. I think that, maybe if the longest reception is kind of your cup of tea, that could be something there. But a guy like Darius Slayton or obviously Malik Neighbors is kind of an easy choice there. But, I think we're going to see less short stuff and more of him trying to, push the ball downfield or extend plays and eventually push the ball downfield. So we'll see. I'm not a huge Tommy DeVito guy. I'm really just happy that Daniel Jones is done.
There we go. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We'll get over to an AFC South matchup. We got the Tennessee Titans. They are going to be in Houston to take on the Texans. Texans fresh off of their victory against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Short week here for the Texans, but they are laying 8.5 in this game here at home against the Titans with a total of 42 here. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Titans and Texans?
Yeah, so on the Titans side, the injury picture is a little bit more clear. Linebacker Jack Gibbons, rookie who's been playing well for them, broken ankle, out for the season. So another kind of blow to this defense. They've kind of had a couple guys, whether it's been L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Quandre Diggs. They've had a couple of big injuries on the defensive side, and they've held up fairly well. But eventually those cracks are gonna just keep breaking. And then running back Tajay Spears dealing with a concussion. At this point, in this point in the season, I always talk about it, but the NFL concussion protocol seems to change as we get throughout the season. It seems to loosen up a little bit. However, I still think he's probably like 30% chance of being able to play. It's just one to monitor. Again, that Thursday practice is the key. If they can get eliminated in by Thursday, they've got a good chance to play. If not, it's very likely they'll miss. Houston side, I expect Nico Collins to continue to get a little bit healthier and get unleashed a little bit. Was looking at his kind of snap percentage. They kind of held him back to somewhat, but he's still CJ Stroud's number one guy. I know the Tennessee Titans have a pretty solid pass defense, so it's going to be interesting. But even if Stroud goes for 200 yards, I think there's still a chance 100 of those go to Nico Collins. So that's going to be an interesting matchup there. And then we'll see about that Texans defensive line with Will Anderson and a couple of those D tackles were a little beat up last night. So we'll see if they're able to get back as well.
Yeah, Will Anderson Jr. is the big one that we're waiting for the Texans. And like you mentioned, with Nico Collins, number one, just staying healthy, obviously coming back, just getting the rust off, getting some gameplay. I think it's been every single game this season where he has played for the Texans here, Sebastian, that he's gone over his longest reception. And that also transpired on Monday Night Football, 33-yard reception. I think the only week he may have not gotten there was against that Jacksonville Jaguars, where he had longer 26 reception. But other than that, 55, 28, 34, 26, 67, and then 33 of his 54 yards on Monday Night Football came on one catch. So if you want to look at Nico Collins' longest reception to go over, I know, Sebastian, you mentioned that is tight against the Titans that have been one of the better pass defenses this season. But 200% agree that he is going to be the number one guy and is the number one guy for CJ Stroud when it does come to targets and him throwing him the football. He did have 7 targets in the game against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. So definitely keep an eye out from some Nico Collins props for sure.
Yeah, and that's not even including that tiki-taki call back screen he took on the first play for 70-some yards or whatever. So definitely loves to target him, and it makes sense. He's really good.
Yeah, I'm going to need him, right? Especially like we talked about with no Stephon Diggs, obviously for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. So just fingers crossed that these guys are able to stay healthy, because if you lose a guy like Nico, it's going to be very, very tough for the rest of the season and possibly in the playoffs if we do get there. All right, Sebastian, before we do get over to the next game on the board here, let me tell everyone about our good old friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and much more. You got new specials and boosts on all flex entries. So sign up with promo code MACHINE to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's part partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money line, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard, and have Rhythm build a model for you. And now you can track props in the Rhythm app as well, whether it's NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, and the NBA. Rhythm has it all. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, let's keep it rolling here. A few more games to get to. We'll go over to the Dallas Cowboys. They are going to be visiting the Washington Commanders. Commanders are a 10.5 point favorite in this game with a total of 45.5 here. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Cowboys and Commanders?
Yeah. So with the Dallas Cowboys side, obviously Dak Prescott IR out for the season with his hamstring injury. Their offensive line, nothing official yet, but they've had multiple guys kind of banged up late in that game. Zach Martin was coming in with the injury. He left with an injury. You had Smith, the guard, I believe, maybe left tackle. But anyway, two of their starting linemen were beat up and had to leave the field late in that game. So something to watch for there as Cooper Rush, not the most mobile guy. And then they did say Cooper Rush is going to be starting, but they will have Trey Lance packages, whatever the hell that means. Tight end Jake Ferguson dealing with a concussion. Looks like he's unlikely to play, they've said. McCarthy already kind of came out and said that. Would expect him to not play then. But look at these other tight ends. I mean, Schoonmaker, 6 for 56, and then Brevin Spann, the Minnesota rookie, 4 for 42. So, I mean, after throwing for 45 yards, Cooper Rush, I think, almost went for 300 yards. I mean, a lot of that was garbage time. But he was definitely moving the ball. And, I mean, the season 2022, when he had to step in, he was somewhat capable. So I was surprised when he looked that bad against the Eagles. Maybe he just took a game. I mean, I think the Texans secondary is better than the Eagles secondary. So I think it was just maybe being a little starstruck first game, whatever it may be, being on the road. But also Brandon Cooks expected to be back next week after his knee infection after a minor procedure. His was a little bit weird. But we expect Cooks to be back, but no Ferguson is kind of the big takeaways. And let's keep an eye on the offensive line. The one other thing I will mention is, Jaden Daniels has pretty clearly been banged up.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between him before he took that shot to the ribs and after has been pretty stark. Not only is his, unwillingness to run, but it's really him short arming throws, and he just looks like he's playing through pain. And it's shown. I mean, against the Eagles, there was plenty of opportunities. Against the Bears, he just does not look like quite the same guy. Playing on Thursday night, he kind of gets that mini bye week. So we'll see if this is an opportunity for him to look healthier or if it really has to wait until they truly have their bye week. So just something to mention. We'll see if Daniels gets closer to looking like what he did at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, was it the game that he got injured? Was it against the Giants?
It was the game before the Bears. So if that was
the Panthers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, I think the last 2 weeks may be a little bit telling, but 10 combined rush attempts that has only equated to 23 yards for Jaden Daniels in that span, and his passing yards hasn't been there over the last 3 weeks, in fact, as well. 209 against the Giants. They did get the victory there, but back-to-back losses for the Commanders against the Steelers and the Eagles. 202 passing yards and 191. And then also against the Steelers, he was 17 of 34, so just 50% on his pass completions there against the Pittsburgh Steelers there. So keep that in mind here. I think that's a great point for Jaden Daniels here. So we'll see how it responds. Like you mentioned, having that mini bye week coming off a Thursday night just gives them a couple more extra days to rest up and get ready for this division game against the Dallas Cowboys. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We'll get over to the Denver Broncos. They are in Vegas to take on the Raiders. Raiders catching 5.5 points here against the Broncos. Total of 41 here, Sebastian. What are we looking at for Broncos Raiders?
Yeah, mostly good news for Denver. Obviously, rolling on with that rookie Bo Nix, beat the tar out of the Atlanta Falcons, which was beautiful. Cashed one of my locks last week. I still think the Falcons suck. But really, all the injury news are on the Raiders side. It's two of the running backs, Alexander Madison and Zamir White. Madison ruled out with an ankle injury. Kind of need more information here if this is low versus high ankle, if he's got a shot to play. But Zamir White, quad injury, looks like a re-injury situation. So I expect him to be out multiple weeks there. So Amir Abdullah, I mean, he's the only guy left, right?
Yeah.
Even before the injuries, he went for, I believe it was, I can't remember the carries, but 54 yards and a touchdown against Denver, who they're playing this week again. He's capable receiver out of the backfield. So, he's a guy, whether it's waiver wire target, if you need a pinch, or just somebody who the market obviously is not going to be very high on, especially early on. So he's somebody I'll probably jump on just because he's going to have the opportunity and the volume. And then cornerback Jack Jones ruled out with a back injury. Just depends if this is something more muscular or structural. If it was just kind of like, had a back strain and they were getting their ass kicked anyway, we'll see. He's got at this point, a 50-50 shot to come back. It really just depends on what's going on. If it is something more structural, that's concerning for, rest of season. But typically it's more muscular when it happens in the game.
All right, yeah, we'll keep an eye on Abdullah this week, obviously with the 2 injuries there to the running back position of the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's get over to the possibly game of the week here. San Francisco 49ers, they are in Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. Packers laying 2.5 points in this game with a total of 47.5 here. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Niners Packers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game, and it's got some interesting guys on the injury report. Starting with Nick Bosa, dealing with a bit of a hip, oblique kind of rib. He's really just been banged up this year. You could kind of tell he was dealing with multiple things to the point where he couldn't finish the game in the most important drive where Geno Smith eventually won that game for the Seahawks a lot because he was able to get outside the pocket and use his legs. So we'll see. I think he's squarely his status is in question. He has been able to fight through a lot of things. So hopefully, nothing too crazy, but clearly picked up or at least kind of increase the intensity of whatever he was dealing with. They're calling it a hip. It's probably more of an oblique type situation. So squarely questionable for Nick Bosa, but optimistic for tight end George Kittle coming off the hamstring. He's expected to practice Wednesday, which if he practices Wednesday, assuming no setback, no re-injury, he's in great shape to play against Green Bay, and they're going to need him. I mean, every win is going to be important for this team to just try to make it to the playoffs, let alone division. On the Green Bay side, they're activating rookie running back Marshawn Lloyd. Expect to be activated off IR. I mean, every time this guy says he's going to be back, he picks up another injury. So it's hard to trust him. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is taking over the lion's share of those targets and those carries. And then Green Bay cornerback Jair Alexander, another guy who's a great player who just lives on the injury report. He was ruled out with a knee injury, not believed to be serious, season-ending type, but still questionable for this week. I mean, again, Jair Alexander has shown his propensity to just miss games really repeatedly. So between Alexander and Bosa, 2 defensive injuries that obviously have huge implications on this game. So really, this is one to watch, one you're going to want to pay attention to. One guy I'll throw out here is Jauan Jennings. I mean, he's just really been one of the best players on that offense, if not the best player of the season, definitely the most consistent. So I think that, people are still going to see Debo, CMC, George Kittle. I think Jauan Jennings, if they're going to keep hanging low numbers on him, it's a good opportunity to take advantage, especially if Jair Alexander is out.
Double-digit targets over the last 2 weeks for Jauan Jennings, 91+ receiving yards in both of those games, 93 against the Bucks, 91 against the Seahawks there. So I think, you're 100% correct, Sebastian. Keep our eyes and ears open for, number one, the injury report, but also our eyes, more importantly, looking at the number that does pop up for Jauan Jennings once those props do drop for this game between the Niners and the Packers. All right, let's keep it rolling here. I believe this will be the last game we'll get to here. It will be the Monday Night Football game. The Baltimore Ravens, they are going to be in LA to take on the Chargers. Ravens laying 3 points in this game with a total of 50, and the battle of the Harbaugh brothers goes down on Monday Night Football. Sebastian, what are we looking at for Ravens Chargers?
Yeah, this would be an awesome game. So that's going to be pretty exciting.
100%.
But there's really one big one as of right now. Baltimore linebacker Roquan Smith dealing with a hamstring injury. He was ruled out in a crucial moment in that game, was unable to turn. It is very difficult to return in just 1 week off a hamstring strain. So I would essentially expect him to be out of, best case, we'll call him doubtful. But I expect him to be out not just this week, but probably at least 2 weeks. Again, that's kind of my standard with hamstrings is what you're able to do. So that opens up some opportunities. I mean, I still think it's going to be very hard to run the ball. I understand he's the leader of that defense, but they have a lot of guys that really help stop the run. But I think it opens up some opportunities for a guy like Will Dissly. He's obviously, I don't know if he was the leading wide receiver for that game, but I know he was pretty close, at least on the Chargers side, but I know he was pretty close up there as one of the top targets. But Herbert rushing the ball as well. We've seen Herbert, as he's gotten healthier, become a willing and able rusher of the football. So, I think that's an opportunity where potentially, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, it's going to be tough sledding for them to run the ball, but maybe Herbert out of the pocket without a guy like Roquan Smith able to spy him could be a little bit of a potential there. On the Chargers side, just some things top of my head off of watching that Sunday night game. They had a couple cornerbacks go down. Dealing with, Khalil Mack did not play. So there'll be some big injuries there to keep your eye out for as well. But right now, Roquan Smith is the only guy we really have official news
on. Just looking at the box score from Monday Night Football for the Chargers there, it was McConkey for the Chargers that led them in receiving yards. Will Dissly was second with 80, but he did have that touchdown, the opening touchdown, I should say, that cashed a lot of tickets over for the DGens only over on SGPN, of course. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I think that is the last game.
Yep.
Especially we mentioned at the top of the show, we have 6 teams that are on bye weeks this week. Probably a good time to mention maybe with these teams coming back, obviously next week. Week 13, guys to keep our eyes on that may be returning for those respective teams, or maybe guys that maybe continue to be out for those respective teams. What are we looking at for those 6 teams?
Yeah, I'll just give you a couple, and then we'll get out of here. But Jaguars wide receiver Gabe Davis, obviously out for the season, meniscus. So whenever you have a meniscus tear, right, there's really 2 options. If it's deemed to be surgical, then it's either going to be a debridement where they essentially go in and they trim that damaged part of the meniscus. And that is one where short term it's better because the recovery time is typically around 4 to 6 weeks. So only going to miss maybe a month, something that Harrison Butker is currently dealing with. Or the better option for long-term knee health is what we call a meniscus or a meniscus repair, where they essentially, instead of just removing that damaged meniscus, they actually repair it. It's better for the long-term knee health because you only have so much meniscus, which is a protective mechanism for your knee, prevents that bone on bone, helps absorb those kind of shock absorption of the knee. So he took the better option, which means he's going to be out for the season. That's closer to a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline. So better for the player, but not that season. And then another guy is going to be out for the season. Cincinnati cornerback DJ Turner fractured his clavicle. He's going to be out. At least probably 2 to 3 months there. So this is a guy who stepped up for Dax Hill being out for the season. And this is a pass defense that's already not good. We saw him make a couple plays against the Chargers, especially Quentin Johnson. He really almost got beat twice and was able to have great recovery speed, a speedster coming out of Michigan. So it's going to be a big loss for this Bengals team. It's going to be more of the same. They're probably going to put up a shit ton of points and let up a shit ton of points as well. So only other guy I want to mention is Darnell Mooney, wide receiver who's, I think he's 6th or 7th in the league right now in receiving yards, which is kind of incredible to think about. But he's dealing with the hamstring strain. Again, I talked about I expect these guys to miss closer to 2 weeks, if not more. So we'll see how he looks coming off the bye, obviously getting the benefit there. But I'm still not expecting him to be 100% by the time week 13 rolls around. So those are major ones. So just keep an eye on them. We'll talk about them next week.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on for next week, but I think that's a good mention. Waiting for some of these guys to return for these respective teams that are on a bye week this week. So we'll talk. Like I mentioned, we'll get into more in depth on those key guys for next week. All right, that's gonna put a bow on this one for NFL Week 12. Again, like we said multiple times, the guys that we've talked about, keep your eyes open. Get on those numbers early because sometimes it could be the difference between winning and losing your bets, especially with these props, as the money does come in on these overs and the lines do move there. So again, another week in the books here. Sebastian, anything else you want to mention to our listeners before we get out of here?
No, man. Just hopefully you guys are show your appreciation. Cash in some winners early, as we say. Just get out that pen and paper and help us out with like, subscribe, comment. Let us know how you're liking it. Any feedback? It being a new show this season, we're open to feedback. So, other than that, appreciate you letting us talk ball, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, 100%. If you guys want anything additional for this podcast, just let us know. Either tweet at myself at SportsNerd824. You can get over at Sebastian on the Twitter machine as well at the DGen Doc. And you also make sure to check out Sebastian's show with his co-host, the DGen Docs. They get in depth on fantasy and on player props as well for each respective week. So a lot of great information that does come about Sebastian's show there as well. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.